Microsoft were wanting or trying to do with Vista. It's like they weren't really sure what they wanted it to be like. And also with that, there was a combination of the fact that they were all basically high off how successful XP had been. And together, that meant that what they were really doing was they were thinking up all these kind of cool features and they were just throwing them in. In terms of Microsoft morale, this was a really great time for them. In terms of how that kind of affected the work they did, not so good in hindsight, unfortunately, although Vista nowadays with the service packs is fine. However, as you'll see in the videos, if you look at some of the early concepts for what Vista was, what they wanted it to be like originally, there were actually some really interesting and really actually pretty cool things there, kind of just tossed in the air randomly and loads of stuff going on. It was really confusing, and there were builds where there were loads of new features, there were builds where loads of stuff was missing, there were builds that were like basically like XP, there were builds that were completely different to XP. It was a real mixture. But anyway, just a quick overview, although I would encourage you to watch the actual overview video for a more general understanding of the development of Vista. But development started basically before XP was released to manufacturing. So in about May 2001 is when Vista development started. Obviously at the time it wasn't named Vista, it was called Longhorn, that was the code name. Those of you that are watching that know a bit about Longhorn will know how difficult that time was for Microsoft and how much of a mess Longhorn really was. So this build that I'm looking at in this video is build 3683. It's an alpha build, milestone 3, compiled on the 23rd of September 2002. So already this build, which is the earliest leaked build, already is over a year into the development process. There are two builds that we know about that come before this one. First one is build 3663, and that was compiled on the 28th of July 2002. There are some screenshots of this build and the next one I'm going to talk about, so I will show you those in a moment in the video so you can have a look at. So build 663 had a new visual style, so not like the Lunar theme in XP, it had a new one called Plex. It was quite similar, it was still kind of based on blue, so similar. And Microsoft really considered this visual style as temporary from the beginning, so it was never meant to be a final kind of RTM visual style. It was a placeholder for this thing called Aero, which they were really, it was one of those things that was high up on their list, this thing about, taskbar transparency, making everything look nice and shiny and glossy and wonderful. And the other build is 3670, built on the 19th of August, 2002. Interesting feature of this build, the device manager has now got its own window in the Explorer interface, so like it is in Windows 7 really. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to skip the rest of this install process, and I'm going to show you the screenshots from builds 3663 and 3670. I'm also going to put in a couple of early Microsoft concept videos for Longhorn. Now these concept videos were from around about 2003, and they basically showed a lot of the nifty features that Microsoft were really going for at this time, so I hope you enjoy those. Here they are. So here we are back in the Longhorn setup process. As you can see, at this stage it's exactly the same as the Windows XP setup process. So this is just to show you. I'm going to let it finish and I'm going to skip to the end of setup. So here we are in build 3683, which is now completed setup and it's booted up. This is the first thing you see, which is quite reminiscent of the XP welcome screen, but you'll notice in the top corner here there's a clock and the date, which is quite helpful. I haven't shown you the boot screen because the boot screen is identical to that of XP Professional and there is no visual change there at all. Now this build of Longhorn calls itself Longhorn XP Professional, which is interesting. You'll notice immediately there is a new desktop wallpaper compared to XP, and in fact it's the same wallpaper that was found in the two earlier builds that I showed you the screenshots of earlier. You can also see that we have this new Plex theme, which remember was always meant to be a temporary visual style, it was never meant to be permanent. Now, one interesting thing about the Plex theme, if you look at the Windows logo down here on the start button, this is the first time ever actually that the Windows logo has been all white. So an interesting little fact there. This is the start menu. It looks like XP start menu. The all programs text is a lot bigger than everything else for some reason. You can see that there's now a My Hardware link, which you can add to the start menu as well. And looking at this, this is a lot like the device manager, devices and printers screen in Windows 7. Now there are a few other interesting things in here. If I go to properties, you can see I have an option here called enable the sidebar. And here I have a sidebar. So if you remember, in Vista there was a sidebar. Now let's try adding something, so clock. There you go, I've got a clock. And how about slideshow as well? If you click and drag, you can rearrange. You can't take them out of the sidebar. They'll just pop back in like that. So they have to stay in the sidebar. You can unlock the bar and change the size like that. Not sure if you can move it. Can you move it? I don't know. Toggle side. There you go. If you press toggle side, you can switch what side of the screen it's on. Taskbar. Alright, now, this is interesting. If you click the taskbar option, then it actually disables the traditional taskbar entirely, and you can see that now the start button has moved to the sidebar. So now I don't have a taskbar, I just have the sidebar. So let's see what happens. So this is the My Computer window. You'll notice that one of the other things that eventually ended up in Vista is this kind of free space indicator under the drive, next to the drive icon. So if I minimize this, I'm assuming it's going to go to the sidebar. Or maybe it should be going to the sidebar. It doesn't appear to be doing that at the moment. So I'll get the taskbar back. So here we go. These files are hidden. Let's what am I looking for? Yeah, I don't want to hide anything. Oh, now where did that come from? Is that because I clicked on that? Right, so I've got a little indicator up here. It takes up a lot of screen space, considering how little information's in it. It's rather perplexing. Now, this is interesting. I'm going to close the sidebar to get it out of the way. This is the display properties dialog box in build 3683, and this is based on Avalon based display properties. I honestly don't know much about Avalon apart from that is what this is based on, and it appears in at least one more build in the future at some point. So this again is a lot like the display properties as it ended up like in Vista. Now let's see what happens if I click on these sections. And that's not working there, is it? So I've got a few options. Screensaver Image, what's that? Now this functionality is currently under construction. Click here to go back. That's not helpful, is it? Yeah, I mean this obviously still needs a lot of work, doesn't it? That's not helpful at all. Use classic. Here we go, this is better. So this is the Plex theme. I don't think there are any other new wallpapers. No new screensavers. You can still access the XP visual style if you so wish, it would appear. There you go. And again, on this visual style, even on Luna, they have changed the Windows logo, so it's all white. Now, if I go to my documents, you've got this nice new header. If I click on my pictures, it changes. And the same for my music. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but this reminds me of Windows Neptune and the activity centers. I don't know whether these pictures are the same or very similar, but that's what it reminds me of. Now, if I go into pictures, look how much screen space that takes up. It's really annoying, actually. So, click on a picture, I get a big thumbnail and lots of information. I can't actually change any of that. There, anyway. And if I click on this icon, I've got a few options now, so I can group them by the date taken, which it seems to be struggling with. Group by dimensions. There you go. So again, this is a lot like Vista now, and in fact this seems to be like a library where it's searching for everything on the computer. Music grouped by album. Interesting. Music grouped by artist, you get the idea. Now how do I get back? Let's just go back. So there's another icon here called details. What's that for? What's that doing? I can't actually tell what that's doing. Let's just go back because I think I might have maybe broken it there. Details. Alright, so that actually toggles this header. That's quite useful. Preview, what's that? Oh, it's the same kind of thing. You could turn that off. So, film strip is no longer an option. Is that correct? Let's have a look. Pictures. Yeah. So in XP there was an option called film strip, which is now not there, but it's this preview thing instead. And actually, now I didn't even know about this. I've just selected 4, and I've got a nice little animation there, and they all pop up at the top. That's quite nice. There's 3. There's 2. That's quite nice. There you go, build 3683, nothing else has changed there, has it? Obviously the version number of 6.0 is the version number of Vista. I'm going to put it back to the Plex theme because those things are not quite matching up, are they? Plex. That didn't appear to work. Try again. Plex. It's quite nice actually. I do quite like that visual style. If I was still using XP, I'd probably use it in XP. That's another option. That's a little bit buggy there, isn't it? So what's that? Don't quite know what I've done there. I've got a camera picture, and does that toggle a clock? Or does it not toggle anything? Slightly confusing. So actually I could turn the clock off there, couldn't I? And I could just have it in my sidebar. That was interesting. My hardware display as a menu. How useful. Although I say that, I don't think personally I'd find it very useful. It's just interesting because I've not seen it before. Right, I want to make this a little bit bigger. Because I want to show you the other tiles. So there's a clock. If you right click, then you've got these options. Always show. I'm guessing that's to always show the sidebar. Yep. Remove the clock. Now can I change any options for this? If I click on it, it gets bigger. Let's have a look at the other... Oh, there you go. You can turn transparency off. Desktop manager. Well, that's interesting. Looks like a bit like Linux. So I've got 4 desktops, okay. MFU. Most frequently used programs. Quick launch. Search. Search the internet. If I remember, I don't think IE works on this build. Oh, I don't know actually. Maybe it does. It does. Version 6.05. Cool. See if I can play a YouTube video, why not? Let's see then. What else? So slideshow, I've done that, have a nice slideshow, and the last one is the user tile. So this is actually something which was in Windows 8 consumer preview, I think. At one point there was a little user tile in the taskbar. What happens if you click on it? You know, nothing. Nothing's a bit pointless then, isn't it? Let's close that. Now, shall I actually try installing Flash Player first, because that might be useful. And then I'll try to see if I can get a YouTube video working. I know I did this a few times with the XP or the Whistler videos where I showed trying to install some software in them. It's not really something which I'm aiming to do in every single video from now on, because I think it's much more interesting to look at the actual visuals of the system and the features that are already there by Microsoft without trying to maybe install anything. From past experience with these unreleased versions, trying to install things, sometimes you get lucky and it'll work. Most of the time it doesn't really. I don't think it's worth it. very, very slow. So what are we going to go for? XP. Internet Explorer. I don't want Chrome. Open. Oh dear, didn't work. Never mind. So, is there anything else we can look at? Here's Control Panel. Switch to Classic View. Just have a quick look around these different things, but I don't actually think there's anything else that's new. So there you go, Microsoft Longhorn XP. Perform what kind of visual? Nothing new there. Startup Applications Monitor. Oh, and that's something I'm not aware of previously. Now this is now in the Task Manager in Windows 8, isn't it, where you can turn startup things on and off. Automatic updating. What about mouse pointers? Anything new there? I doubt it. No. Add remove programs, yep, that's the same as it was in 2000. And XP. That would appear to be it then. Nothing else left to look at. So I shall see you in the next video.